The poor girl rejected a billionaire's money. Take the money. The billionaire slowly pushed a check across the table. $5 million. The entire restaurant fell silent. Customers stopped eating. Waiters froze. Even the music seemed to disappear. The young waitress looked down at the check. $5 million. Enough to buy a mansion. Enough to pay every medical bill. Enough to change her life forever. The billionaire leaned forward. You deserve it. But instead of reaching for the money, the girl pushed the check back. No! A shocked gasp echoed through the restaurant. The billionaire blinked. What did you say? The waitress looked directly into his eyes. I said no. Outside the restaurant, reporters were already gathering. Phones were recording. Nobody knew that within minutes, the poor waitress would reveal a secret that had been buried for 23 years. And it would make one of the richest men in America cry in front of the entire world. Emma Carter was 23 years old. She worked at a small restaurant in Chicago. Life had never been easy. Her mother was sick. Hospital bills kept growing. The rent was always late. Most months they survived paycheck to paycheck. Emma often worked 12-hour shifts. Sometimes she skipped meals so her mother could eat. Yet she never complained. She always smiled. She always kept moving forward. Her coworkers often asked how she stayed so positive. Emma always gave the same answer. My mother taught me that hard times don't last forever. But neither Emma nor her mother could imagine what was about to happen. One rainy Tuesday evening, a black luxury car stopped outside the restaurant. Then another. Then another. People near the windows began whispering. Several bodyguards stepped out. A tall man in an expensive suit entered the restaurant. Everyone immediately recognized him. Richard Harrison, a billionaire, founder of one of the largest technology companies in the world. His face appeared on magazine covers, television interviews, business news. The manager nearly panicked. Employees rushed around nervously. Richard quietly sat alone in a corner booth. Emma was assigned to serve him. She walked over carrying a menu. Good evening, sir. Richard looked up. The moment he saw her, his expression changed. His eyes widened, the color drained from his face. He stared at her without speaking. Emma felt uncomfortable. Sir? Richard blinked. Coffee. That was all he said. For the next hour, he barely touched his drink. Instead, he kept watching Emma. Every time she walked past, his eyes followed her. It wasn't creepy, it was something else. Almost like disbelief. Almost like heartbreak. Emma couldn't understand it. When she finally brought the bill, Richard suddenly asked a strange question. What is your mother's name? Emma froze. Excuse me? Your mother, what's her name? The question felt personal. Too personal. Still, she answered. Sarah Carter. The billionaire's hand began shaking. The coffee cup slipped from his fingers. It crashed onto the floor. Everyone turned. Richard looked like he had seen a ghost. His lips trembled. Then he whispered, Impossible. Before Emma could ask what was wrong, Richard stood up and left. Without another word. Without even taking his coat. The next morning, Emma received a phone call. A luxury car was waiting outside her apartment. Inside sat Richard Harrison. He looked exhausted, as if he hadn't slept all night. I need to talk to you. Emma almost refused. But something about his face made her curious. She got into the car. Neither spoke for several minutes. Finally, Richard took a deep breath. Then he said something that changed everything. 24 years ago, I loved a woman named Sarah Carter. Emma's heart stopped. Richard continued. We planned to get married. Emma stared at him. But one day she disappeared. No goodbye, no explanation, no note, nothing. I searched for years, he said quietly. I hired investigators. I traveled across states. I spent millions trying to find her. Emma couldn't believe what she was hearing. Then Richard looked directly into her eyes and spoke the words that changed her life forever. I think I might be your father. The world suddenly felt unreal. Emma sat frozen. She could barely breathe. Her entire life she had believed her father abandoned her before she was born. That was the story she had always been told. Now this billionaire was saying something completely different. Emma rushed home. She confronted her mother. The moment Sarah saw Richard's name on Emma's phone, she burst into tears. For years she had hidden the truth. Richard really was Emma's father. But decades earlier, Richard's wealthy family hated her. They thought she was too poor, too ordinary, too embarrassing. They didn't want their son marrying a waitress. They offered Sarah money to leave. She refused. Then they threatened to ruin her life. Terrified and pregnant, Sarah disappeared. She believed she was protecting her unborn child. Richard never knew. For 23 years, both had lived with the same heartbreak. News of the reunion spread quickly. Television stations covered the story. Social media exploded. Millions of people followed every update. Then Richard invited Emma to his mansion. It was the first time she had ever seen such luxury. The house looked like a palace. Journalists waited outside the gates. Inside, Richard led her into a private room. A table stood in the center. On it sat a single check. $5 million. Richard pushed it toward her. I missed 23 years of your life. His voice cracked. I can't get those years back. He swallowed hard. But maybe I can help give you a better future. Everyone in the room expected Emma to accept. After all, she was poor. Her mother was sick. Their apartment was falling apart. Who would refuse? But Emma remained silent. Then something unexpected happened. Richard reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out an old photograph. The edges were worn and faded. He handed it to her. Emma gasped. It was her mother. Young, beautiful, standing beside a lake, smiling. I carried this photo every day for 23 years, Richard whispered. Tears filled Emma's eyes. Richard opened his wallet. Inside were old newspaper clippings, private investigator reports, missing person notices, search records, evidence of a search that had lasted decades. I never stopped looking. The room fell silent. For the first time, Emma realized something important. Her mother had spent 23 years raising a child alone. And this man had spent 23 years searching for the family he never knew existed. Richard pushed the check forward again. $5 million. Enough to solve every problem. Enough to change everything. The room waited. Cameras recorded. Reporters held their breath. Emma looked at the check. Then she remembered her mother. The sleepless nights. The sacrifices. The struggles. The courage. Slowly, she pushed the check back. No! The room exploded with shock. Richard stared at her. Why? Emma's voice trembled, but her answer was firm. Because my mother spent 23 years teaching me that love is not measured by money. Silence. Complete silence. Emma continued. You didn't know about me. I don't blame you. Tears rolled down her cheeks. But I won't sell 23 years of my mother's sacrifice. Richard's eyes filled with tears. Then Emma said the words nobody would ever forget. If you really want to be my father, she paused, don't buy my life. The billionaire lowered his head. Emma took a step closer. Be part of it. Richard broke down crying. Not as a billionaire, not as a businessman, but as a father. Months passed. Richard never tried to buy Emma's love again. Instead, he showed up. He attended family dinners. He visited Sarah. He listened. He cared. Eventually, he helped pay for Sarah's medical treatment. Not because he was rich, because he loved them. Slowly, a family that should have existed 23 years earlier finally began to heal. One evening, Emma sat beside Richard on a park bench. The sunset painted the sky orange. She asked softly, "Do you regret losing all those years?" Richard smiled sadly. "Every single day." Then he looked at his daughter. "But I thank God for one thing." Emma looked at him. "What?" He squeezed her hand. "That I found you before it was too late." Years later, journalists still asked Emma the same question. "Do you regret rejecting $5 million?" She always smiled before answering. "No, because money can buy houses, money can buy cars, money can buy comfort, but money cannot buy lost years. It cannot buy love, and it cannot buy family. Sometimes the greatest gift a billionaire can give isn't money. It's showing up when it matters most." And for Emma, that was worth far more than $5 million.